Sliney, welcome to Creator in Conversation. Thanks so much for taking the time to speak with us today. How are you keeping?
Very good. Very good. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Great. And it's an exciting year for you because we're just saying before the recording, we're talking a little bit about the original 1980s Master of the Universe film, but there's the new remake that's coming out very soon this summer. It's only, what, 2 months away, I think, at point of recording in
June
June.
5th.
Amazing. And this is a lifelong ambition for you because you're getting to work on the new comic series with it as well. So was He-Man the GOAT for you growing up? Was that one of your iconic
Uh,
heroes?
he was the first, is the way that I think of it. So I've had several goats over several different times, I think, over the years. Obviously, Spider-Man and Star Wars are big ones for me as well. But He-Man's what kicked it all off, and I've always had my eye on it. In fact, the first time I had a piece of artwork published in a comic was fan art in a He-Man comic many, many years ago, believe it or not. So I was obviously very excited about the movie. I've been kind of chatting to some of the team inside there for a little while, and when the opportunity came up to be a part of all of that, I just jumped at it.
That's amazing. And are your kids old enough to appreciate the old series yet, or is that still ahead of
No,
them?
they do. Yeah, they watch it. We've both of the DVD sets. My daughter loves She-Ra, my son loves He-Man, and they love the CGI Netflix one as well, actually, which is quite cool. They're a little too young for the 2000s one, which is would have been the one that I would have watched religiously when it was coming out then too. And I'll see if I'll bring one of them to the cinema first. The older guy, he'll be 8, so maybe we'll see. We'll see how creepy Skeletor turns out to be.
My nephew just turned 7, and like it's great because he's just discovered He-Man with his dad now as
Mm.
well. I'm like, this is awesome. It's making a comeback. Everything we're cool again because we know these characters.
Yeah, but and I also think that I think that age of like 5 to 8 is underserved these days compared to what it was. You know, like a lot of kids are going away from traditional stories off to like FIFA and YouTube and Roblox and stuff like that, whereas we would have been like watching X-Men and Spider-Man and stuff like that, you know. Which is why I think this stuff is kind of coming back a little bit more for kids with people buying the DVDs and showing it to them. So I hope there's more stuff made for that age now in the near future.
Absolutely. And you've been making great strides in that demographic as well, particularly with all the stuff you've been doing with RTE in the past as well has been amazing. And that's really opened up a whole new kind of dimension to your career. Was that always something you had considered doing, or was that just an opportunity that presented itself?
Yeah, no, I never really planned on it. I guess you couldn't. So I've been working in comics for many, many years. Loved the job. Like I wouldn't have changed it for the world, but COVID came along and everything kind of paused and stopped. And right at that time when like literally all the printers for comics kind of were shutting down, I was asked to be the art teacher for Homeschool Hub when RT were making, teach at home content for kids. And that went really, really well, and that led to the shows on RTE and Sky. So yeah, it's been definitely not planned, but it's been a really nice little new career that's come out of nowhere.
I know, and absolutely. And here at the Academy, we've often put the emphasis on the transferable skills because, of course,
Mm.
it's amazing to have the opportunity to work professionally in comics. But as you probably know yourself, the path to getting into mainstream books in particular isn't necessarily a direct line. So
Mm.
often people find a way through different opportunities. For yourself, Will, what was your kind of background? Like, did you study art in third level, or were you mainly self-trained? Was there any formal training in comic books, or was it a different field that you studied in?
Yeah, so most of the comic stuff was definitely self-taught. I do believe it's a skill that anyone can learn just by putting in the hours at home, and I do think the more you draw, the better you get, and that applies for any stage of your career. I studied what was called multimedia in CIT. That's now called creative digital media in MTU. So it had a wide variety of stuff. Like there was a little bit of illustration, there was a bit of filmmaking, a bit of animation, a bit of After Effects, a bit of programming, website design, all that kind of stuff. And funnily enough, it was that kind of that kind of programming, God goodness me, not that that kind of After Effects and editing stuff that really came back in handy when we were doing the shows because I would edit and make the animations and all that stuff a lot to kind of kick things off and hopefully hand it over to someone else a few episodes in. But all of that comes from that kind of creative and drawing background, and it's definitely a bit of a I found going into these industries, like talking to other directors or other people who even make kids shows and stuff like that, that they, if they can't draw, I have a leg up over them because I'm able to kind of visualize stuff and show stuff visually, which helps all the way through the project.
Ah, awesome. And you mentioned as well just the editing of some of the material. You also recently had your first directorial debut as well in animations. What was it? Sorry, let me sure I get the name. Was it the Android Academy? Or am I mixing?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Droid Academy or
Droid
Android
Academy.
Academy,
There you go.
both
Perfect.
same to me.
And what's
Yeah,
that
so
experience
yeah,
like?
yeah, that was a really fun opportunity because we started doing a bit of 2D animation in one of our RTE shows, and I started kind of enjoying that. And as I was doing that, I started kind of learning Blender, and Blender is free, open source, and there's so much video learning and stuff online for because of the fact that it's open source. There's more hobbyists around it and more people who can do these kind of YouTube tutorials. And essentially, I got to the level myself doing that. I did like a few little tests and things with characters that I made and rigged, and kind of figured I think I could give this 3D stuff a go. And then it went back to like creating a story and pitching a story. My wife actually has really started writing a lot of the stuff for us, and she was a secondary school music teacher. And that was kind of the point of view that we went with Droid Academy. It was a student that didn't really fit in with their creative process with everyone else inside of the school. So she really led with the idea for that one. And I started drawing it up visually then, and all of a sudden we had a pitch and a pitch deck, and we were able to pitch it in. And RT do these great initiatives called RT Sparks. They're these like little 2 minute animations they kind of fund companies around Ireland to do. And we were greenlit to do one of those, and all of a sudden, we're making a little animation. So it was a really lovely process, to be fair. It all went very smoothly. We got great help from everyone around Ireland in the animation industry, which is massive here. And it was thoroughly enjoyable.
And you're just recently over at Animation Dingle as well, which is
Mm,
really blown up. It's now an Academy recognized festival. So, win at the Dingle competitions, you could be eligible for Academy nomination. And it's a great opportunity for students of animation as well to get the first industry experience.
yeah.
Was this your first Animation Dingle, or have you been at previous shows?
No, I've been, excuse me, this is the third time there. Last year I actually got to do a nice panel for them where I brought down a couple of the comic guys who were having some of their stuff adapted into animation. We did a panel on what it's like, having stuff adapted into animation from comics, So there's the comic book industry and there's the animation industry, and there are these two parallel industries that kind of we're all working on the same characters and the same kind of stories, but I find there's been very little crossover. I would have worked at the highest level that there is inside in comics, yet I wouldn't have known the people who are doing animations of these same characters with over in Ireland. And thankfully, I was really welcomed into that industry. Going down to Dingle was fabulous, and I got to meet like everyone at all the different studios and stuff. And it's we're a bunch of nerds over here in the comic book industry, and they're a bunch of nerds over there in the animation industry. So we all tend to get along, which is quite cool.
And it's really interesting because I had Steve Mooney on speaking with him before, and he was just saying like he studied down, I think it was Ballyfermot in
Mm,
animation, because again, there was no real pure comic book
yeah.
classes at the time. It's interesting now because I know back when I was at Pulse, we had the sequential art design production module, but I've also noticed that UCD are offering accredited modules now within comic book production, embedded in other
Okay.
programs, but really useful leaps in the right direction as well.
Awesome.
So the synergy between comics and animation here, because as you said, those listening outside of Ireland, animation industry here is huge. Like Rick and Morty post production and rigging's taking place in the country. So, but it was interesting how comics never had the same momentum
Mm,
behind it. Probably because we were so close to the UK, because you had Rebellion in 2000 AD. Maybe that just kind of overshadowed a bit. But in your personal journey, Will, I remember back when Cucullin was coming out, you had the Late Late show
yeah.
appearance, which is amazing. But you were sharing about how you went over to San Diego Comic Con for your like first major con appearance and kind of well trying to network, I suppose, at a convention. What has that been like for you? Like going to America, like did you always realize that is a step that you would have to make? And would you think it's easier now for people who might want to pursue
Mm.
professional work, given social media? Do they still have to put a face in at conventions, or do you think it's more about what you curate your portfolio online, or a combination of the two? Because I know things have changed, but what do you think?
Yeah, good question. You certainly don't have to do the amount of traveling I would have had to do to try and to get your work seen. And that's the joys of social media now, whereas that would have been the absolute only way. Like, geez, when I was starting, I was posting them over,
Mm.
literally posting portfolios off to America and they would get ripped on the way. It's to be
Oh no.
destroyed. And so the conventions I still think are a great thing to do. Just the great thing now is that they're all over the world. You don't just have to go to America to go to them. And ironically, like after years of me going to them, uh, I think I was spotted by Boom on a message board. And then I was spotted by Marvel at a Comic-Con in Ireland, but it's that networking that I did over there certainly massively helped, and everyone kind of knew who I was. And like Marvel were just essentially they had their eyes on me for a while, and they could see me improving and improving, and just waiting for me to get to a level that they were happy with to be able to hire me to work with them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we had Thomas Healy from Todd McFarlane Productions come in and speak on the podcast with the class. And he was just saying, like, Todd himself is literally just going on Instagram. And if they can find somebody, if he just sees talent and if the unknown, he takes as a badge of honor to discover
Cool.
someone as it were, which is
Yeah, I
great.
understand that. Yeah, cool.
Um,
That's
and
awesome.
and the Dice show as well was fantastic. And you've been
Mm.
doing a couple of shows down in Cork with Mahon Point, and the guys at Big Bang as well, who are the organisers behind the Dice show as well. How have you found just the experience of comics in Cork? Because obviously you've become synonymous now with when we think Cork and comics, usually it's yourself that comes top of the list. But have you seen a shift? Because I've noticed post 2008 after Iron Man, I see people who I never knew would be interested in comics in general. Suddenly the
Mm.
MCU kind of made a shift. But growing up, did people always know you were interested in comics, and have you seen much of a shift towards it? Because obviously Gary Maloney recently has been picked up for his first comic gig. Chris O'Harland's been doing great work with recently DC doing the Kryptonite Spectrum. And it's the core comic creators down there as well. But what have you noticed as a big, change in the pendulum?
But you just listed it there. That was the first thing I was going to say. Like what I think about when I think of Cork and comics now, I do think of things like the Cork Comic Creators, which has been going for ages, and it's fabulous and it's very welcoming for people to come in. And the same with Cork City Library do a thing every year where they take kids in essentially transition year in school and pair up writers and artists, and that's where Gary actually came from, which is mad. So it's fabulous that those things are here. What I wouldn't have given to have access for something like that when I was younger. And it's all led by the people themselves doing these things. You know what I mean? Like especially the core comic creators. There's always, people really pulling it up by the bootstraps and helping this thing happen by just giving their time and energy to do it, which is fabulous. And it just puts people into a room kind of creating and doing stuff together. And you'll never know what happens out of it. And like, look at Chris now, like he's been working at the top for many, many years. Gary too, getting his breakthrough, which is very difficult as a writer, because it's harder to be able to show your stuff. And for people to be able to get their teeth into your stuff and to see whether they're liked it or not. Whereas if you're showing your art portfolio, you can just show it straight away and people can know if they like it straight away. So that's what I think of when I think of comics in Cork now, and it's great.
And just speaking of presenting the portfolio as well, obviously it's a visual medium. So, what would you say, if not a tip of what to do, maybe advice of what to avoid for people perhaps preparing their first portfolio? We have Dublin Comic Con coming up in August, and that's usually become a center point now for people bringing their portfolios. Is there anything that you would say with hindsight people should consider when preparing? What would you say not to do or what to consider?
Yeah, yeah. So but sometimes you'll see portfolios and some people want to do comics and they won't have any sequential art in there. So that's the obvious first one. And everyone that shows me a portfolio like that, that's what I'll say to them is go back, draw some pages and put them together. And then you can kind of really get into the storytelling nitty gritty and help improve things. And I'm even thinking of the portfolio pages that I saw at Dublin Comic Con a couple of months ago. And that's then when like there's like you can really help by analyzing the storytelling, giving little tips that people might necessarily know that are just things that you pick up by practice and you learn them by doing. So it's all about doing those pages. You don't need much, like 5 pages of story is absolutely enough. Sometimes people will want to pencil, ink, color, and letter and do the whole thing. And often that I would never discourage someone from doing what they think is fun. But like that's an awful lot to do. Like where go if you are trying to get work, go with your best foot forward at the thing that you want to do the most and the thing that you enjoy to do the most. So if so not many people would make it in doing all of those things. In fact, that's extremely rare right now, and you're just kind of slowing yourself down. Whereas I would say, if you got in as a penciler and if you wanted to color your stuff, then you can get there later on in your career, once you've kind of bedded yourself in, and you've got a real solid, amount of experience in drawing and storytelling and stuff like that. So, yeah, and like every portfolio is very different. Everybody has different strengths and weaknesses for sure. Like there was someone with a portfolio at Dublin Comic Con this year, and like they had the best like kind of character stuff that I'd seen in a long time in a portfolio. And then their weaknesses would have been the superhero stuff. And then the next portfolio might be the other way around, where they can kind of do the cool poses but can't do the subtle stuff that's there. But all of that comes with the time and the practice that you put in yourself. And my favorite, I think the best thing that not only I like to see, but like editors like to see is like it's rare you're going to get hired the first time around, but if you show someone your stuff and if you come back the next year and they can see that improvement which comes with the drawing, and that's a real eye opener that that person is really putting in the time and effort to get better. And those are the people that people kind of, it sticks in their head. And that was definitely me for Marvel. Like I was just constantly doing that stuff, and I only found out after I'd gotten the job that the people that were hiring me were like saying that they always remembered my stuff and they can remember the improvement and they knew that I was going on the right track, and it was just a matter of time if I kept going at it.
Yeah, it really is a journey at the end of the day, isn't it? Maybe people are like straight to the destination, but sometimes it's like, you learn as you go along. And it's also as you touched upon there about understanding we prescribe to the T shape of learning here, which is we get everyone do a little bit, even if they come in, they're like, I'm going to be a writer, we'll still get them to pick up a brush and a pen and
Yeah.
attempt an illustration. But it's to better understand how everyone's role fits in. And
Mm.
then we realize the fun bit is the collaboration then, because comics are a very collaborative medium between the reader and the book itself, but also the making of. For yourself, Will, in your collaborations, like you've done both writing and illustration. Now you're getting into like the multimedia side of things as well. Um, what do you see then for yourself? Like, how do you like to like? What do you seek for in a collaborator? Do you like where you can come together and break a story with somebody, or do you prefer having the script handed over, or do you like it? Just depends. You like to mix it up. Do you have a preference?
Yeah, well, it's funny. I'm more used to that now. I'm getting more used to that in the TV side of things. Like we have a couple of projects that aren't announced, or like, we had to set up the writers' room. We had these like really top level writers in there, and learning their processes and how they do stuff for writing episodes for shows and things like that, which has been a really great experience, and seeing how they approach it step by step. And you have and the system where you have your head writer and they'll communicate how they want stuff, and that will go through like when you're on a TV show and there's 100 people on it, like you need to communicate with your collaborators so well as much as possible because you have this big long pipeline throughout the whole thing that if someone in there isn't working off the same hymn sheet, then it can kind of, things can fall apart. So we're kind of lucky in comics that it's much smaller. And then, like on the comic side of it, what has happened with me is I kind of find my people and tend to work with them a lot, you know. So like Charles is a obvious example of that. That you know, the way we communicated and collaborated and worked together has been really fun. And like I said, drawing comics with Charles nonstop for years. There's ones we're working on that haven't been, you know, announced or anything yet between our creator owned and other stuff, you know. We're doing lots of that. And all of these things kind of come through from friendships and things as well, you know, and how you get on with someone. Like I'd never worked with Tim Sheridan before, who I'm doing Masters of the Universe with, but we like all of a sudden struck up a friendship a couple of years ago through He-Man, funnily enough. And we could just tell by the way that we were kind of chatting online and stuff that something will come along the line, down the line where we would get to do something together, you know. So and that's been a lot of fun. And you know, I think at this stage now I know the kind of people that I would work well with, and the types of collaboration that I seek. Some people prefer just to be in comics, just left alone and off they go, whereas I like the back and forth or being on a WhatsApp or just being able to ping over an email or anything like that as well. So.
That's brilliant. And does the NDA stuff drive you nuts? 'Cause I know from my animation experience, like everyone would, you'll get a dream project, but then you can't talk about it until like trailer one before they can even say they're on it. And then it's like they disappear. That's why I say to everyone, have a side project, something you just do for yourself
Yeah.
so you remain visible. But yeah, what's it like when you're sitting on like NDA stuff? Are you just like, is it just like screaming into the void? And what's the relief
I'm
like when you can
used to it
share?
now at this stage. Like I have, I've been working on so many projects that weren't announced, and randomly they're all coming out at the same time pretty soon. So like I think in like without saying what they are, I think in September and October I'm going to have an issue out every week from different projects, which is crazy. So sometimes it just happens that way. And then it's multiplied by 10 when it's TV stuff. Like I'm working away on stuff that's not going to be out for years, you know, but it's just the way it goes. The more I think the more you're kind of doing of that stuff, um, the more you get used to that. I will say though, with the we had that episode of Marvel Illustrated that came out from Marvel's YouTube, and that one now I was like, I can't wait for this one to get out and to be kind of to get out into the world. Like so, I was counting down the days for that one. So I was thrilled to be part of that.
That's amazing. Is that going to be a couple of more episodes as well? Are they rotating or how's that? Is that like a web series onto itself?
We definitely have plans for more, and nothing is announced yet. But we got a really good reaction from the first one as well. I can't believe how positive all the comments were on YouTube. I was bracing myself because that's where that's that world, you know. But it was super nice, and just it's really nice to get to, you know, I've got to do this stuff for so many other things on telly over the last little while, and get to kind of to put that hat on with the team inside Marvel has been really good fun.
Oh yeah, and I think process related people I respond very positively to. Like
Mm.
there's a real hunger for that type of
Mm.
content. And did you pitch the idea to Marvel or did they approach you about doing it?
I started talking to Marvel about it about a year ago,
Mhm.
just showing what we could do, and then just kind of, you know, basically like how not many comic book artists would have a TV production company, you know, and the ability to make stuff that gets played on TV, which has come second nature for us now. In fact, that's probably never happened before, you know,
Mhm.
so it's kind of silly not to take advantage of it. And I've got some really good pals inside there. And we just kind of talked it out and worked it out for ages about what this would be, and what it could be. Yeah, and like I said, like yeah, there's more to come. So it's gonna be
Well,
good fun.
awesome. Looking forward to it. And that's on Marvel's official YouTube
Mm.
channel. So if people want to see it, they can subscribe there to make
Mhm.
sure to get the updates. And how do you manage it all, Will? Like what's your what's your working week like? Do you now compartmentalize by day and just say this is like a day for comic art or and this is a day for meetings? Or do you break up the day itself into hours? Like how does it, or is it how do you manage it all basically?
Yeah, not easy at the moment. Like it's just the nature of comics. Projects can kind of come in out of nowhere. Like there's a project I'm working on now. that had been, we've been talking about for years, and it finally came in, and you can't say no to those things, like, because you're really excited to do them. And it's just about balancing. I have another project possibly coming after, which is going to be massive, and this might be the one where I'll have to kind of clear everything else away. We'll see. Well, to a point. Um, yeah, the comic book artists are certainly well able to work hard, I think. That's all part of it. I used to draw 15 issues a year for Marvel. I don't do that anymore. And thankfully they've allowed me to slow down to be able to do things like Marvel Illustrated and stuff. So you just gotta balance it out the best you can.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much, Will. I've waffled on here a fair bit now myself, so I just want to make sure we have a couple of students here this evening. So I just want to try out for questions from those as well. So I'm just going to go to Craig first. So over to you, Craig.
Yeah, hi, Will. I was just
Hey,
wondering, in your brain, what sticks out the most as a difference between working for a large company like Marvel and then working for yourself?
good question. When I worked for well, there's the obvious thing of work for hire and creator owned, which I'm sure you all know here. Um, it's funny. So all of a sudden now I have a chance. I'm able to pitch TV shows and things like that. I can kind of pitch whatever I want. That door has been opened over the last few years where I would know executives inside in big TV companies, and I can do pitch decks for that. Uh, and like I've kind of gone from essentially non-stop working for Marvel, where my day I didn't realize how meditative my day was, where like I'd get my script and I would just draw it and I would draw it to the best that I can. And I love those characters and I'm extremely nostalgic for them. And it's almost then like when I'm working for myself, uh, I'm trying to think of how could I ever create something that gives that nostalgic feeling to somebody else. And as silly as it sounds, like if I went off and I created by myself the next Spider-Man or whatever, which is probably impossible, but like I don't think I would even value that even more than working on Spider-Man. I just genuinely love both. Um, you know yeah, God, so at the end of the day they're both things that I like to do, and I feel very lucky that I get to do them for a job, so both days make me happy. The one thing I will say though, when you are working for yourself, is that like everything falls on your shoulders and your shoulders need to be able to carry those things, whereas when you're working for a team on something else, you have that team around you and you can kind of share the load with them. And I remember talking to a director I knew, and he was explaining to me, this is long before I was doing TV and stuff, and he's explaining to me how like it was important for him then to build a team of people around him he could trust and work with. That's what I aspire to do, or I'm trying to do as much as I can then for the stuff that I'm doing myself on the TV side of it, so that I can work with people that help with that kind of workload and share that out to hopefully build something bigger. Yeah, I don't know if but it's weird though, because some people tend to like one over the other. I genuinely really like both. Yeah,
That's great. Thank you.
no worries.
Brilliant. And we'll pass over to Diego next, who has a question as well.
Hey,
How do you market yourself in an entrepreneurial way? Because you keep, reaching new stages, new publics. Now you do production for TV. Back in the day, you had an app for drawing. You're always making not only art, but great business decisions. Do you have any tips or any rules that you follow you could share with us?
if you said, if I heard that right at the start, you were saying like how do I kind of market myself? I think very badly, because one day I'll have a post up about this is the Cold Witch, a horror comic with loads of bloods and guts, and then the next day we're like, watch, draw at will and learn how to draw Unicorn Academy or something, and I have a but I don't know how to balance that stuff whatsoever, because we're doing stuff for kids and doing stuff for adults as well. Business wise, everything for me is just so motivated and always done with like the fun of getting to create something new, which is I think is why we all do this kind of stuff. And like we did it, I did that app, and that app was actually, it's probably really bad business because that app was like the number one like educational app on Android for about a year. And we didn't make a penny from it because we didn't know how to do it and we didn't have the effort and stuff to do it. But it was fun to do, you know. Geez, if I had that now, I would certainly know what to do with it. But this was about 10 years ago. And it's funny, we just let it go. It was actually a fun project that my brother and I did together. Because he's from that world. Yeah, like look, like there's like even like I couldn't claim to say that the TV stuff either was a business decision. Like it was a product of COVID that I always laughed that I fell backwards into it. Like the first day when we were filming the Sky Show, it was my first time ever on a film set. And we were walking down towards the soundstage where it was on, and people would be like, "Hi, Will, hi, Will." And I was like, "Why does everybody know my name?" And my Johnny who was with me was like, "They're all working on your show. Of course they know your name." Like, it was such a strange experience to me. So I've definitely been a product of luck and timing. And I know that's a weird thing to say because that was a COVID thing, and that's the reason why I fell into it. But the one thing I always do, and I think again it comes from the fact that I genuinely enjoy all these things, and I'm like when I go into Animation Dingle, I'm like a fan. I'm like there talking to someone who worked on the Ninja Turtles cartoon back in the 90s and stuff, and you're like, this is amazing. So that enthusiasm definitely comes across, and I think, and I always try to be a nice person, and that goes very, very far in all of these businesses. Like you notice that the people who aren't are the ones that get kind of dropped out, and I'll always, try is probably the wrong word, but there's no need to switch into um, businessman Will who goes after the numbers and stuff like that. Like when you're working in industries that are doing things where you're creating stuff for fun, then that I think that natural enthusiasm that we all have is welcomed and stuff like that as well. I'm not very good at writing a LinkedIn post or any of that stuff. In fact, I hate all of that. What would you call it? Synergy and verticals and all of that stupid language that's there. Whereas I much prefer, showing something off with a drawing or whatever. That's a very weird answer to that question. Apologies. It'll probably tell you how non-normal businessy I am. So
Thank you so much.
no worries.
No, it's gas to hear. We have probably before this episode goes out, we had a marketing and AI analyst join us to talk. It's not about generative AI, but just how comic creators could use those tools to maybe help with their marketing, like analyze the insights, maybe help them make the prompt, like the LinkedIn post and stuff. So it's a whole other dimension to it, but it gets more business orientated, I find. Like my whole career in comics has been like 90% business and like
Yeah.
maybe 10% actually making a comic at the end of the day. But thanks again. Is there any other questions on the floor?
I think my kind of real question would be uh God. I think the real question would be like, how did you kind of find your style, Will? And do you have any kind of like I don't know, tips or kind of advice for someone who's trying to either adapt their own existing style of artwork or trying to like just better themselves in some way?
Yeah, great question. Like I would have been, I certainly have portfolio pages back in the day where you could see I was heavily learning from Jim Lee, and then the next day I'm heavily learning from Joe Madureira, and my pages kind of looked like that stuff. And I think your style comes out once you've like you pick up bits from all of the artists that you like, and it kind of mushes together, and that gets you off in one kind of a path, and then all of a sudden, your own style kind of emerges from there, and I think that uh, like I know exactly what you're talking about because um, like when you're before you're as you're kind of breaking in and stuff like that, if that's the right way of saying it, especially nowadays, I can't imagine what it's like because you would just have see like I can imagine going through Instagram now or Pinterest or whatever it is and being like, look at that incredible style of art. That's totally different to anything that I liked before, yet I love it and I want to kind of learn from it and kind of take pieces. And that must be quite distracting and difficult because I can only imagine there's just too much there to kind of choose from, but then on the flip side, that could make these kind of really eclectic things. For me, the way it definitely was for me was, it was a couple of years of like my sample pages would have been heavily influenced by the artists that I really, really liked at the time. And I would just be looking at their stuff and I'd be like, oh, look at the way Jim Lee draws torsos and things like that. I'm going to kind of learn that and practice that. And then you kind of get pulled away to another artist and another. And I think eventually you find your own little base within there. I do think coming on one of the things that you said that like I think you said like you'd like to find things to add things to your style. One thing I never did, which I wish I did, um, more of would have been I would have liked to have like created some sort of notebooks that would have been practice notebooks for specific things that I wanted to bring into my art. So like let's say for example, I really like how Stuart Immonen does shadows on faces. So I'm going to go off and I would draw loads of faces and loads of different angles, just like very basically and then try to study them and apply shadows in the same way that person has done. And by the time you've kind of gotten through your notebook of doing that, not just drawing the faces they've done, but like just drawing faces at different angles and trying that kind of stuff by drawing, I think if you had a notepad of that kind of stuff, you'd nearly have like you get to the point where you don't have to think about it as much and it kind of gets into the back of your mind and it sticks in there and that's a little like piece that you've added to your arsenal. And I'd like to have kind of done that all the ways along. Whereas when you're drawing sequential pages, then it's kind of harder to think about that because you're struggling through the pages and you're trying to figure out how to do these poses, and you can be more focused on anatomy and why isn't this pose working in this kind of a way, and you can get kind of bogged down in that kind of stuff. And so I think it would be nice and refreshing to have those little notepads of I want to draw hands like this, or I want to draw eyes like this, or whatever, and just keep that thing separate for that, and it will just naturally filter through then to the other pages. So to the sequential pages that you're doing.
That's perfect. Thank you very much.
No worries.
Brilliant. And I think we have a question from Yaya as well. Go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, well, I'm just following on from Jack's question, as a kind of a side piece. Would you say that if, for example, if you're looking into going into like certain types of studios, for example, do you think it's essential to at the start try to emulate more of the more established styles that the studio has, or lean into, say, like more of what you prefer or your own style?
Are you talking more about like things like concept art and video games and stuff like that
No, I
then, or
think just more
comics?
for comic books.
Oh yeah, okay. I would have said concept art and stuff like that, yes, but comic books, no, absolutely draw your own way. That's
Mhm.
what's really nice about comics now. In that like they do look for like different visual styles, will suit different books, and not just different books, they might suit different stories and things like that. So to draw things your own way, I think is a really, really good thing. Like I lived when I was in New York, I lived with Ricardo Lopez Ortiz is his name, and he's got this like super kinetic, awesomely energetic manga kind of style, which would be rarely seen in comics kind of at that time. And it fits it so well now, and he gets picked up for those awesome projects that I would never get looked for because of the way that he does this stuff. So another Irish guy that just broke in was Danny Earls, and he has this like super strong, solid Gothic architecture led stuff with these amazing backgrounds, and people are like seeing his backgrounds and be like, wow, imagine if he drew Metropolis or Gotham City and all of a sudden he's drawing a Batman and a Superman book because of that individual strength that he has. So definitely, and this the other thing about art and the other thing about drawing and stuff as well is that like, it's all about like you have to have that enthusiasm to draw all of the time. So if you're forcing yourself to draw in a style that you don't necessarily like, then you're not going to enjoy it as much, and you're just naturally not going to draw as much as well.
Mhm.
So I think draw your way. Now, on the flip side of that, then, let's say if you have a real manga style, and then maybe there aren't going to be as many books for Marvel or DC that are drawn in that way. But then there's that whole manga industry, like it just might mean you're more suited to another one, but that doesn't mean you're not going to be in Marvel or DC. Like look at what Joe Madureira did. Like, he was the first person, I think, to fuse kind of Western comics and manga stuff and create the style that has been kind of copied for years and people loved. But definitely, like, you're never going to succeed, I think, if you're drawing in a way that you don't want to draw. So I'd encourage you to draw your own kind of way that you enjoy the most, definitely.
Okay, thank you so much.
No worries.
Brilliant. Well, thanks very much, Evan, for your questions. There's no other questions in the floor, I take it. Oh, sorry, back to Diego. Go ahead, Diego.
Yeah, can you hear me well?
Yep.
It's just a curiosity, because the Cocolan that you did for O'Brien, because I remember once I called O'Brien for something and I didn't communicate well with them. But how could you tell us how did that come about? Did you pitch to them or they look for you?
I did pitch to them. It's a while ago now. I think they had just about started doing those comics, and I think at the time, that time was when they did the most of them then. Like Dave Hendrick would have done the Grania Whale one. There's a good few other ones as well. So I think they were actively looking for them. I'm not quite sure whether they are now or not. Um, but it's essentially it would be the same way that I would pitch anyone. I send an introductory email saying, hey, what's the story? You're looking for pitches? I'd love to send you one. And then I always try to keep my pitches as short and sweet as possible. Try to have it sold within the elevator pitch the best I can. And basically say, here's more if you want. And then that would just be a full page. Excuse me. And I would obviously show it visually as well, because I'm able to do that, and that would be expected from me too. Um, Again, this was, oh my God, how long ago? 15 or 16 years ago, probably more, when I would have pitched them, because I had to draw the thing and color and letter it, which is why I don't recommend doing that to anyone doing all of those things. It took me forever. Yeah, but like, even and I would still do that now. Like, like if I'm pitching a show or anything like that, it's finding if people are open for a pitch, asking that question very simply and directly, and then, getting it across in that paragraph. I think that's the real skill, is being able to like that is what you're doing when a viewer or a reader is choosing to watch your show or read your book. They're making that decision in the tiniest amount of time. So you have to be able to kind of win someone over, I think, within that paragraph too.
Thank you so much. That was
No
very,
worries.
very, very good.
Yeah, best of luck if you're pitching them as well. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, hopefully. No, it's always a great fan from a long while. I met you back in the day as well. I love it, the
Okay.
Spider-Man 2099, the new design of the costume, that everything,
Thank you.
I remember talking Star Wars with you. Always, as you say, your main thing is you're so nice. And naturally, you can tell you're a good person, and good people is always helping others, and you are here helping us. Thank you so much, Will.
Thank you. Cheers. Thank you. I hate compliments, so thanks.
That's going to be the clip now to promote the
Yeah,
episode.
yeah, yeah. Classically Irish. I just never know what to say. Run away. Thanks.
Uh,
No, I appreciate that.
but no, this has been brilliant. And like, thanks everyone for your questions. Thanks so much, Will, for your time. I know you have like a million and one things on the list. So to even carve this out has been amazing.
No worries.
For folks listening, so what's the next project that you can talk about that's going to come up? Is it the Masters Universe tie-in comic, or is there something before that?
Yeah, so no, yeah. So check out Marvel Illustrated, definitely help us with the views. The more views, the better. That's the way YouTube works. Oh my God, not Star Wars. I've been working on Star Wars for so long. Master of the Universe comes out I think 2 days or 2 or 3 days after the movie comes out, we get to tell a really funky story in that that we're sworn to secrecy on. But like I cannot wait to see that movie. Like since I got the curtain was peeled back and I got to see everything involved in it. Like, and I remember waiting for that trailer to come out so other people get a glimpse into it. That's going to be fun. I am working on another Marvel project right now that's not announced, and a whole bunch of them will be coming out very, very soon. So definitely a busy year. And in the background, the TV stuff takes longer, but we are working away on something pretty big there too. So really excited for that to be announced, but it'll be a while, but it's going to be by far and away the biggest thing I've ever been a part of. So yeah, exciting times ahead.
Great, and we're looking forward to reading it all as well as it comes out, or viewing. And as you were saying, find on YouTube and like and subscribe as well for all the upcoming stuff that's happening. Brilliant. Thanks so much, Will. Thanks a million.
Thank you. Cheers, everyone. Thank you.